I don't know if I've ever showed up a week early to a meeting. I mean, I've missed a lot of meetings. I'm the worst at like planning stuff and following up on stuff. And so I'm really happy that I've decided to venture in my own business because it's there. I gotta get a lot better at it, because I'm terrible at it.
Well,
so you showed up to a meeting a week early.
I was a week early. I show up at the coffee shop, and then I realized it pretty quickly after I ordered coffee. Nobody was there. There was supposed to be a bunch of other people there. Nobody was there. So I sent texts to them all, calling them slackers for being, I'm a week early. Where are you?
Like, hey, loser, I did it the other day. I've got to drive my daughter, Mary Lou Renton, and the rest of Team USA to gymnastics practice like a couple times a week. Big carpool, and I drive over there on Monday, and I'm sitting in the parking lot, and I'm like looking, all right, it needs to be 240, and it's like 241, 242, 245, and I'm like, what the F's going on? So, I text her, my daughter, like, where are you? Question. Well, I texted her like she texts me.
Right.
So, she does dad and then sends. Dad sends. Daddy sends. Dad, where are you? Sends. Question mark, send, question mark, send, question mark, send. So I did that to her. And then she finally replied, I'm not going to practice today, you idiot.
Get it straight.
I'm like, I told you.
Pressure.
But then it was, I send, told, send, you send, wasn't
emphasis.
going today, exclamation point, send, exclamation point. I mean, can they just not type? Can they not text in like one, like full paragraph text? Why does this generation do it in like 10 consecutive texts? What is the reason for that?
Bigger question is, why are you putting so much pressure on her to perform in gymnastics? Like,
because
like,
I want a scholarship and I want to be in the Olympics. That's why.
Yeah.
And mom and dad have spent a lot of money. Okay, we spent a lot of money on this.
I had a track and field coach tell me that girls high school javelin, there are only 17 states that have girls high school javelin as a high school sport. And there are 50 states that have colleges that have javelin. So it's a reverse bottleneck. Like, have her throw the javelin. Take her over and have her throw the javelin.
Well, it's weird in gymnastics that a lot of the girls, when they leave gymnastics, and this is about so she's 14, like in the next 2 years, they pivot. They'll pivot if they don't want to stay with it. It's kind of the word on the street, or kind of the trajectory, the word on the street. I was looking for another word. What's the word on the street? Yeah, there's a lot of people on the street talking about girls gymnastics, you idiot. The trajectory of it is either you stay in it or you do something else. And a lot of the girls do two sports. So you mentioned track and field, and it's not the javelin, it's the pole vault. Because they have the core strength to pull themselves and push themselves up over the bar. The other one, which I would love to see her do because she likes to swim, but she's not like the best swimmer, is diving. Because when they dive, they can do all the flips and the aerials. And she's been doing that since she was like 7. So, but yeah, I mean, when she doesn't perform well at meets, we make her walk home and there's a lashing. Yeah, I mean, we go from the Bella Caroli School of Hard Knocks. It is a world, man. Did your girls ever do it?
We didn't. No, not competitively like that.
It's crazy.
We don't have balance in our family. That's the thing. We're just not. We're like soccer players, basketball players. We don't have that core balance. You put us on a beam, iffy.
That's the scariest thing in the world. I've said it many, many times. I think there are a couple of things as a parent when you watch your kids play sports. I think there's one that stands out more than the other. If your daughter pitches in softball or your son pitches in baseball, because they're the only ones out there, and it's them, and it's kind of all on them. So when it unravels, everyone sees it, and it's terrifying. And the other one is when, if there's any parents listening to this or watching this, their kids do gymnastics, watching your kid do the balance beam it's awful. I mean, the thing is, like, I don't know, 4 inches wide, 5 inches, and they're up there, they're back flipping, they're doing all these twists and turns. One time I'm videotaped, Oh, it's awful. Like 2 years ago, state championship in like the Tri-Cities, and I'm watching her do a routine, and she does a flip. She misses it, and she splits the beam right on her crotch. And I mean, I erased the video, John, but I'm videotaping it, and you hear me go, oh God.
Yeah.
It was so painful to watch. And then
I
after that, I stopped videotaping it.
All right, so I've covered 5 Olympics, and it's not hard to spot the Olympians' parents in the crowd. They are still there like you are. They are still hanging on every twirl and flip.
Yeah.
The journalists are all lined up trying to figure out how you score this thing. Like I'm nudging the French guy next to me going, what are they, why is that a 9.7? Why is that not, to help me understand this. But you can find the parents in the crowd, and they are, they're there and easy to spot because they are having the worst time than anybody.
Oh, it's miserable to watch. Let's get to it. John Canzano's with us, a bald-faced truth, 750 the game. You can read all of his fantastic work up at johncanzano.com. His weekly appearance brought to you by Zeke's Pizza. Visit Zeke's Pizza today and get the best local pizza, best local ingredients beer that you can find. Best selection of pizza, salads, and local Northwest craft beer. Big thanks to Zeke's Pizza. Yeah, it's being a sports parent. It's really fun. I mean, we had a baseball game last night. I coached my son's team, and it was not just for my son, but for the rest of the kids. They're getting to that age. I mean, they're 10, 11, 12 now, but it's a group of kids that really like the sport. And so they're starting to get like way more serious about it and competitive. And last night we played, this other team was really good. Like one of the best baseball games I've ever seen. Like no walks. Every team had good pitchers, striking people out. John, we had two by both teams pickle plays. I don't know why if you're watching on TV, did the balloons went off. I don't know why the balloons went off on
what
the video.
Just happened?
I don't know.
Did you say pickle plays?
I guess two pickle plays that were well executed by both teams where play at third, the catcher's running the runner down, third base covers, the pitcher's covering home, and they're peeling off. I mean, they're doing it.
Yeah, they got it.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's great.
I couldn't believe it, how great it was. Yeah. And I sat back there and just kind of shook my head and been like, man, Major League Baseball players don't do this. And we were able to do it last night.
That's good to see. And then just when the kids get it down, they'll expand the distance from the bases. And they'll move to the next level. And pitcher's mound, everything's going to get thrown off again. So don't you worry. You'll be right back there.
I know. Yeah. I wish we could just stay at the Little League level there forever. All right. We
had a youth soccer game on Saturday. Our 7-year-old is a soccer player. And I'm the dad who sits there while the teams are warming up, and I'm scouting the other team. And I'm telling the moms, girl in the purple shin guards is their best player. Seems to have command. But when you are 7 and playing soccer, the difference in the game is which team is more aggressive. It's a little bit of Lord of the Flies, okay? And so our team, my daughter, happens to be a very aggressive player. She's got some skills, but she's aggressive. And I watched the other team warm up, and I said, this is going to be a bloodbath. And it was the kind of game, it was 13-0. And it was the kind of game where I'm rooting for the other team, because I know I've been there. I have 2 other daughters. I've been on the other side of one of those games, and I'm looking at our coach, and our coach is trying to pull play everybody back. Yeah. Let them throw the ball in, but you can't tell your kids not to compete. And so there was just a competition thing going on where I felt for the other team, and I was sitting there cheering, "Hey, nice job!" As the other team's dribbling around and stuff. But
parents don't want to hear that. They don't want you to pander them. They just don't. They want you to shut the F up, man.
It's 13-0.
Oh, that is unbelievable. Yeah. Okay, so that obviously, and she's 7, so they don't. Yeah. There's no mercy rule.
No, that's what my wife said. She goes, is there a? Do they call it at some point? And I'm like, no, they don't call it.
Okay, so when did that change? Do you remember? I don't remember this as a kid. Do you remember having a mercy rule at all in sports?
No. No. It was, we were like, the Little League that I played in, it was rough, man. I mean, it was like you got exposed, like Chip Kelly. You get exposure or you get exposed. And I think that mercy rule came along after our generation. But now I think there's been a correction because you know why? Because we're parents now and we're going, we don't need no mercy rule. It's disrespectful to show mercy. So
I do. I feel that way. Like we don't have it in baseball anymore, but we just finished up 5th grade basketball and they still had it. If you got up by 20 points, well, there was 2 things. One, if you got up by 10 points, you couldn't press anymore. Okay. Then number 2 was if you got up by 20, they turned the clock off, you win, they restart it. They just restart the clock. A new game. But the thing is the kids know. They know, okay, we lost by 20 and now we're starting a new game. We're not fooling them to think, oh, it's 0-0 now. Because I can hear them on the sideline. Oh, we're up 24-0 now. I mean, they shut up, but we're up 24. I mean, they know it. I agree with you. I think it is, in a way, I know what they're trying to do, more disrespectful to that team because now they got to say, oh, my God, we got mercied, and now we have to sit there and wear this for the rest of the game.
Yeah, my daughter, she's a goal scorer, okay? And so she's 7. But the coach told her, don't cross midfield, like in the second half of the game. Don't cross midfield, just play from back. But she has the ball and she's in an open space. She's kind of looking at the coach like, can I go? Is it okay to go and score? And the coach was like, just pass it. Stay back, you know? And I kind of agree with that. There's some things you can do coaching. You know, the combinations of players that you play can impact the score of the game or the flow of the game. But you're damn right about the kids knowing the score because my daughter runs over to me at the end of the game because at one point they said, we're not keeping score anymore. They announced that. We're not keeping score anymore. And my daughter came over and she goes, 13-0 or 14-0? Like, you know, she's 7.
Because you promised me, a burger and a milkshake if we got 14.
She's got the juice box and she's like, was that 13 or 14? You know? So,
are you in charge of said snacks after the game?
That's my wife.
Do you sign up?
Yeah.
Oh, that's your wife.
My wife. And the funny thing was we were supposed to pick another player up on the way to the game. And I didn't know. Like, I barely know what day it is, right? So I'm not aware of who's carpooling or what. We were supposed to pick another player up, and my wife looks up just as the game's about to start and goes, oh. crap, we forgot Emma. So
did Emma ever get to the game? Oh, geez.
Emma's dad's running towards the field with his daughter in tow.
Jesus, man.
It happens.
Yeah,
it's a good life experience. I think the whole thing is a great life experience. Winning,
I agree.
losing, being abandoned, all that's great for kids.
Getting left in a mall. I was abandoned as a kid one time on a school bus. I was like gone for like 8 hours after school. They couldn't find me because I fell asleep on the school bus, and the poor bus driver, I think I was in the 3rd grade, and just forgot about me back there.
Parked
my mom
at
was
the yard where they
at the yard where they put the school buses, and they finally found me. Can you imagine in this day and age like that happening?
Oh, there'd be lawsuits.
No cell phones, no nothing. It was it's my poor mother was hysterical for good reason.
I think we have too much information now. We got air tags on these kids. We know where they are at all times. The ability for your daughter to send you one-word text messages, and can you imagine? Okay, here I was talking about this with a football coach the other day. Like the way they recruit now, there are grown men on social media direct messaging and texting and having to, show kids that they're interested by who they follow. And, they have to play that game now. And then, I can't imagine like some of these older coaches who are going out are going, I'm not texting some 18-year-old kid.
Hey, I'm with you. If I couldn't do college coaching anymore, I would just, if I were in it, I would bail to go to the NFL or whatever the professional league is. All right, let's transition to the portal. So the spring portal is open. I mean, it is. It just feels like, today as we're taping this on a Tuesday, it's going to be a mass exodus of people coming in, coming out. I mean, it's a holiday now, this spring portal. The more changes are going to come to it. We talked about, I think, last week, where it's just going to be unlimited transfers and they're going to change the game. How's Oregon State's been dealing with it? I mean, they've been dealing with their women's basketball team, but let's highlight Damian Martinez for a second. He was a hot name last year. Everybody kind of jumped on him and congratulated him because he was staying home. He's staying at Oregon State. He's going to be a Beav. And everyone's like, yeah, that's right, commitment. And then not less than a year later, he's in the portal and he's going to transfer. How
Yeah.
has that been received down there in Oregon?
Well, it's an adult decision, and he's dealing with some adult consequences for that decision. Like, the fans are not happy, especially, Jonathan Smith leaves for Michigan State. You have players leaving in the portal at both Washington State and Oregon State. And here's Damian Martinez, 1,100-yard running back, dominant player, saying, I pick you, I am staying. So I think a lot of Oregon State fans glommed onto that and said, we can put our hopes here. This guy's picking us when no one else is. So this is evidence that, not all is lost. Turns out he had a $400,000 NIL deal. And
Well,
I had no idea. I have heard some things in the last week that are really eye-opening. I don't know where all this money's coming from, where these donors are coming from. It does not feel like it's sustainable. But, there was a basketball player at Arizona State getting $250,000. I didn't think that it was a marginal player. You've got Martinez getting $400,000, but Oregon State's collective does a funny thing, or a really smart thing, in that they don't just give him the $400,000 when he says he's coming back. They are paying him quarterly. So on March 19th, he got $92,000. And, within 2 weeks, he's in the portal. So that's why you don't give $400,000 in a lump sum. Now, he only got 92 because he was supposed to get 100, but he bought a car. Now, he had a deal with a local dealership in Corvallis where he was getting use of an SUV. It was free. He could have stayed on that deal forever. If he had consulted with me, I would have told him, take the free leased car, put the cash somewhere else. You do not need to go buy a car. But Damian Martinez did what a lot of 19-year-old kids who were handed $100,000 would do. He went out and bought a $60,000 car, turned in the free leased vehicle. He was short $8,000 on his down payment. So Oregon State was alerted to that. They paid the dealership, or the collective paid the dealership $8,000, gave Damian 92. He made an offhand comment to a reporter, I didn't even get the full money. What he meant was he only got 92 out of the 100. But I later caught up with Damian. I said, what is this about? Is it a better deal somewhere else? Is it, what's driving you to do this? He hired a new agent who's in Florida. The agent is telling him he has to compete against the best competition to prove that he's the number one back in the draft. So he wants to go play against better competition. And I'm like, LaDainian Tomlinson played in the WAC. Like, Marshall Faulk played in the San Diego State. Like, you can get anywhere. You can get to the Hall of Fame from, a group of 5 school or whatever competition you're playing against. And he just didn't want to hear that. He said, it's not personal. It's not about money. It's not about NIL. He's got his new Dodge Charger, Scat Pack. Beautiful red color, has a fancy name, Crimson something. And he is driving that thing out of town. And there's a lot of people mad at him. And then there's a lot of people mad at the women's basketball team at Oregon State. And it's interesting to see how that's being treated by fans. I think the women are getting held to a different standard. They're getting a ton more criticism. Because I think people at Oregon State viewed the women's basketball program like it won't be all about money to them. It won't be all about going to the Big Ten or the SEC or playing, they got to an Elite Eight. They stick together. They can get back to a Final Four. I just find it really interesting that the criticism of the women's basketball players has seemed a little more pointed than the football players.
Well, that's probably how we stereotype and view women, right? Very docile and, conforming. Going to do what's best for the family, the program, the business. They don't look out for themselves as much. They're not a me culture, but it's, I think that is the interesting thing now with the explosion of women's basketball is that and I think the popularity of the Caitlin Clarks and Angel Reese and the likes is that it's become more like a male sport. But with that comes the criticism that comes with the male sports.
Yeah.
That will be I think something interesting to kind of follow here in the next few months. The next few years as that sport continues to grow.
Yeah.
How many girls ended up leaving the program?
I think they're down 8 now.
Wow.
And, and look, they went to the Elite Eight. They're really good. They're young. They all came back. I have no doubt they could get back to an Elite Eight, maybe get to a Final Four. But the curse of that is they've had a taste of the Elite Eight. They lost to South Carolina. They were down 4 to South Carolina with 4 minutes to go, and they were in a bunch of foul trouble. Like, you bring this team back, I think they will compete. They would have competed at a high level. And then I talked to Scott Ruick, the women's coach at Oregon State, kind of about, him trying to hold the line, and he was trying to, sell. He loves those kids. They love playing for him, but he's trying to sell them on this idea or a concept of stay together for 1 year, give me 1 year. And maybe, he got some positive reaction to that. Reagan Beers, who's a freshman and might be their best player, made a plea to the rest of the team. Let's stay together. Let's do this. But the problem is she has 3 years of eligibility left. You have other players on this team who are looking at 1 year. And that's a lot to ask of a college athlete who's just got one more year to kind of, believe in what is going to happen next year. And there's no proof of performance. There's no, Oregon State was out trying to get non-conference games against like UConn, South Carolina, LSU, Stanford. They want to play the best schools, but nothing's formalized. And so that is a really tough sell. And I feel really bad for the fans and the program. But I talked to 5 of the players yesterday, 5 of the 8 departing players. And the immediate thing I noticed, because again, I'm talking to Damian Martinez one day, and then 5 of the 8 players who are departing on the women's team another day. The women's basketball players at Oregon State were gun shy. They were a little unsure, didn't really want to speak, afraid if they said something, they're just going to get a pile of criticism because they have spent a week just getting criticized, told, why didn't you stay together? You're not loyal. And it's different. I think the public and the Oregon State fans are treating the women's basketball players differently. I don't think it's right because on one hand, we're all looking at Jonathan Smith going, well, he had to do what was best for himself in the end. Damian Martinez, yeah, we get it. You're getting advice from an agent. But then we're asking these women's basketball players to be different than that. And I just don't think that's the world they're living in anymore.
No, not until they change it and change the rules. I mean, it's just a complete wild west. It's terrible. It's terrible for college athletics. I think it's terrible just for, I think, commitment, and I think your word. And I wonder if these kids, when they get older, are going to regret what they did. I mean, I don't know if you're a golf fan at all. But this situation, if you followed the Masters this past week, I don't know how much he regrets it, but there is a level of regret for Jon Rahm that he went to leave. Yeah. And you can hear it in his voice. You can watch it in his body language and just how he acted this past week. He regrets not being on the PGA Tour anymore. And I think if he could do it all over again, he'd give the money back and go back. Because I think he realizes, yes, I can't remember what he got, 600 million, 800 million, or whatever it was. I'm set for life. But what I miss the most is competing with the best, competing at these tournaments every single week that I love. And money can't make up for that. And I think some of these kids are going to find out, Damian Martinez and the others are going to find out, money's that can't make up for that great experience in Corvallis or Pullman or in Seattle or wherever you go to school. And I think they're going to learn that lesson pretty hard. For some of them, some of them it's going to be a great decision. But for others, I think they'll regret it years down the road.
I mean, I just keep going back to myself, though. Like, I go back to 18, 19, 20 years old, and I didn't have that view at that age. They don't have that view. Their parents are antsy because their parents have managed them in the way that club sports parents manage kids to this point. They're no different than the kids at UCLA or Stanford or Oregon in that way. And so the parents have kind of gamed this ecosystem for their success. They get it. They go to an Elite Eight. They get a taste of the Final Four. And they've got a whole bunch of people in their ears now telling them, you can't get what you had before. Like, it's not attainable to you. And so it's really hard.
All right. What do you make of the Tybo Rogers situation at UW? I mean, who's to blame?
Look, you can hide all you want behind semantics, behind university policy, behind, it's not me. I'm not allowed to talk about it. But in the end, we all have a code. We all have values. We have a value system we have to adhere to. We can play those games. We can play semantical games all day long. Truth of the matter is, you had a player who was not all that important to your roster, who is under investigation at the very least for a serious offense. And you've got to decide, do you want this person associated with your program or not? There's just a level of offense. And for me, it's kind of like asking yourself, who would you allow to be around your kids? There's a level of offense. Innocent until proven guilty is one thing, but there's just a level. There's a risk. There's an allergy that I have to certain offenses that I just would not, in any circumstance, want that person associated with my kids, my family, whatnot. Fair or not. So you can say all you want. Hey, their privacy laws won't let us do this, but I think Kalen DeBoer blew this, and I think I love what he's done on the field. Think he's a person of integrity, mostly from what we know. But this thing bothers me because when it comes to sex offense, when it comes to rape, when it comes to, violent crimes, you just have to have a level where you go, we're pumping the brakes. You're not traveling with us for a reason. We're not welcoming you back until the disposition of this case is over. That's just how it's going to be with your program. And so I think for him to make the statement saying, we adhere to the university policy is one thing, but we know darn well coaches are in control of the conduct, punishment. I've seen coaches who have sacrificed that ability to have a player available because they know it's the right thing long term. Bothered me at Oregon State. They had a registered sex offender who was on the baseball team, and when they found out, there was uproar, and people said, "What do you think about this?" And I said, registered sex offender. Not babysitting my kids, not in uniform on my team, not around the program until we figure out everything that happened here, and then we make a decision. Because the risk there is that, you don't do the right thing, and it turns out, if this person is convicted of 2 really serious offenses, that's a University of Washington running back who's convicted of those offenses, and you knew. Kept him from traveling and then invited him back. I don't like it, Puck. I don't like it one bit.
Yeah, and I think that's the part that I can't really find a right answer or heard anybody offer a right answer on that one. It is clear, and it's how the police documented the original suspension, why he didn't play in the Pac-12 game due to the Title IX investigation. Because Ryan Grubb, the then offensive coordinator for them, and now the coordinator for the Seahawks, is on record of saying, yeah, he's dealing with some stuff. He's away from the team, talking to Sports Illustrated, to the person that covers the team for SI. So they're aware of what is going on. And even the police officer said, we believe that they knew the connection of why he was dealing with the Title IX. What I don't get is how they go from not allowing him to play in the championship game, because nothing changed from that. It was still an ongoing investigation. Nothing changed for then not allowing him to play in the championship game, but then we allow him to play in the semifinals in the championship game. That's what I think DeBoer and Ryan Grubb and others with the university, Anne-Marie Coste, need to explain to someone at some point what changed. Why was he allowed to play after you didn't allow him to play?
And why is he not allowed to play now if he was allowed to play then? If your line is, until there's a charge, we're not doing anything, that is a dangerous position to be in, because you could have, and we all know, you could have a dangerous person who has committed serious offenses in uniform on your sideline, part of your team. And I long believe, and I got into it with Jerry Tarkanian over this years ago, because Tark would bring, he would bring some characters to campus that were dangerous. And one of his recruits ultimately murdered somebody on campus at Fresno State. It was after Tark left, but it was a kid he recruited. And I said, the risk here is too great. And so when you have, there's some offenses, Puck. It's violent crimes, rape, sex assault, registered sex offender. We know where those lines are. And, there's a level of discomfort that I think all programs should have with those kinds of allegations. And so when that stuff comes up, I think we need to drop partisan lines. Who cares who you root for? Yes, innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. I'm not saying lock him up. I'm saying we got to pump the brakes here and say, you know what? It's not okay for you to be in uniform until we get this sorted out. And they did that at the Pac-12 championship game and then changed their mind for the college football playoff? I don't know. I don't even need that answer. I just need to know where's the line.
And you said it for a player that wasn't like a good player, but it wasn't like an integral part of their team.
Yeah.
That's kind of the head scratcher. You think Jedd Fisch was aware?
I don't know. I know when I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, because I think when you come through the door, sometimes your world's spinning. They're trying to figure out who's on their staff, who's not on their staff, who's on the roster, who's not on the roster. If that conversation was or wasn't imparted to him, he looked genuinely surprised by it and didn't, I don't think you give him criticism. I think, he had enough to worry about at Arizona, Jaden DeLore.
Yeah.
Like, there's a whole nother conversation there. Like, but I think, remember when they brought Jaden DeLore to media day? I mean, come on. Like,
yeah, which everything was public at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, I still am was taken aback why they brought him there.
Yeah.
What the decision to do that. Yeah, I agree with you. He came across in that interview on the field that I believed him.
Yeah.
I mean, I know some don't, but I believe that he really was not aware, and then became aware of it pretty soon after, or within that last few days before he gave that interview on the field. And I don't know. I think ultimately, I don't know if it's Troy Dannon, it's Kalen DeBoer. I think Anne-Marie Casse, if that reached up all the way up to the president's office, which a Title IX case should, then I think ultimately she bears a lot of the responsibility as well.
But the head coach, to me, like Chip Kelly took over the Oregon program. Okay, here we are, 2008, 2009. They make this transition. He was a first-year head coach in his first season. He had several incidents that year in his first summer that he was on the job where, he, in his first game, he has LeGarrette Blount throwing a punching out a Boise State player. And all of a sudden it became apparent that Chip Kelly hadn't thought about discipline, hadn't thought about what is punishment. How am I going to handle these things? Remember, LeGarrette Blount was gone. He was essentially kicked off the team, and then he was brought back. And, it gave Chip kind of a time to figure out, what is my discipline? So head coaches today, I think, have to know where the line is. What am I okay with? What am I not okay with? Yes, you can say publicly, go ahead, say publicly that, we're not allowed to talk about this stuff. There's, Title IX involved, and, the student privacy is involved. But in the end, you have to determine, like, okay, is there a level of offense where I go, I'm sorry, you're suspended. I just can't have this around us right now until we get clarity on what exactly happened and whether or not there are charges. Now, Chip and I got into it really bad over one of his players. He had LaMichael James, who had been arrested. It was a domestic violence situation. Chip called into my radio show. We argued about it on air because I was saying, this is bad. He refused to suspend LaMichael James. And he said, the reason is, well, there's the only team activities is weight training, where it's not like we're in season. And we got this big argument over like, hey, like, I think you have to have boundaries. I think you have to set a tone. And he did not. Now, it turned out the charges got dropped. And I said to Chip, what would have been the harm of suspending pending the outcome of the investigation? Give me, what is the detriment in that situation? And he argued his side, saying, I'm not going to do that unless I know there are charges. But I'll tell you this, subsequent years, when Chip Kelly had a player who was under investigation for a crime, he suspended the player pending the outcome of the investigation. He figured it out. It took him a year or two to figure it out. So I don't think like whatever coach out there is a first-year head coach. I think about young coaches like Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State, Dan Lanning at Oregon, in their first jobs. Even Jake Dickert at Washington State. Like you're a head coach, okay? So I think about those guys. You have to think about this stuff before it happens and decide, okay, what's my code? And this has nothing to do with Washington, Oregon State, whatever. I think I've seen coaches get this right and get this wrong at all levels, different institutions. But Kalen DeBoer struck me in his handling of this as a person who hadn't thought it through, was busy preparing for a championship game. He's got a player as a peripheral contributor, knows it's probably not going to get out until the end of the season, brought him back for some reason. And now, there's, again, adult decisions, adult consequences. He should have to answer to that.
All right, let's go over to a, I want to say a happier story, a more positive story. I mean, it does have kind of a sad ending to it for sure. Yeah, this is why your work at johncanzano.com is just so brilliant. I mean, it's not only just the the sports related stuff and about the ongoing like TV negotiations or what's happening in college athletics, professional sports, and all that. But it's the human interest stories, and the story that you have up there with Brandon, and forgive me if I
Hellervik.
butcher his last name, Hellervik.
Yeah.
This story on Brandon Hellervik. He's not an athlete. He's not doesn't work for a sports team. He's just an everyday guy that you just stumbled upon and met and forged a relationship. He passed away, and you just wrote a beautiful tribute about Brandon. Again, remind our listeners, how did you meet? How did this relationship start?
Well, he owns a crane company, and he was a listener of my radio show. He was a reader, 52-year-old guy, and blue collar. Salt of the earth, liked to help other people, had a good heart. I mean, it's like throw a dart into your audience. That's Brandon. Okay. And so, he reached out to me because he wanted to get involved. We have a nonprofit that helps kids in art, music, education, athletics, BFT Foundation, we call it, Bald Face Truth Foundation. And so Brandon wanted to get involved. He wanted to help out. And so over the years, there were numerous times where he said, hey, I want to sponsor some kids to go to summer camp. I want to do that. So I just got to know the guy. And, he had been through some hard times. He had some vision problems. He was legally blind in one eye. He had a bad limp. He never complained. He's one of these people, like all day long, you run into people who are just bitching and moaning about their physical ailments. And, you just, yeah. Okay. Go into a coffee shop, open your ear.
I'm pointing at myself.
So Brandon was not that guy. All right. So he was just there to help other people and good heart. And so I had stayed in touch with him, just texted him over the years, happy Thanksgiving, happy Father's Day, him lamenting to me that kids grow up too fast. He had become a grandfather at a pretty young age. And he was like, gosh, these kids are getting old. And so I reached out to him like during the NCAA tournament, and I did not hear back from him, which was unusual. And then I got an email from his wife, Carrie, and she said, I just want to let you know that he passed away last Saturday. And he had been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. He had a stroke subsequently. He was given 6 months to live. He had a stroke and died 2 weeks after his diagnosis. He never said anything to me about having cancer or being on limited time. And so I just kind of wrote about his life and how he lifted people up. I mean, think about the metaphor of the crane operator who is always elevating people around him. And it's just interesting, for people in their 40s and 50s. You've gone through this stage, or maybe you have young kids, but I think a lot about, this stage of our life and pivoting. And look at you've pivoted into pucksports.com, and look at me. I've gone off and launched my own writing endeavor. And we're kind of in this stage of life where we're trying to figure out what to do with the last phase. And when someone dies at the age of 52, it hits me like a bag of bricks. I mean, it's like, for all of us out there that are not focused on the things that we ought to be doing or want to do, like get busy living, as Shawshank told us. So I wrote about Brandon and just heartbroken for his wife. And, I know that she's been having sleepless nights and not doing well. And I wanted to take an everyday person and write about him. I write about sports people all the time, but I think it's neat to kind of humanize a guy like that.
It was beautiful. It was a beautiful piece. It really was. And just everything about him and his personality and the fact that you kept in touch with him. It's what separates you. All right. It's what separates you there at johncanzano.com. You can do it all. Hey, I'm going to put this on your radar. We'll have at least, let's see, when is the date? Yeah, we'll have several more shows for this one. Okay. May 12th, of course, is Mother's Day.
Okay.
What are we going to do for Mother's Day? I'm in a conundrum. My son has got a baseball tournament on Mother's Day.
Okay.
And the wife, the CEO, has already asked, do I have to go?
Ooh.
I really don't want to spend Mother's Day at a baseball tournament. By the way, the baseball tournament is called Bombs for Moms. So it's going to be like this whole Mother's Day thing. So I presented this to her. I said,
a little manipulative there by the tournament organizers, by the way.
Of course. I said, if you go, you and the rest of the moms, I'll bring stuff for you, like food. I'll make like a mobile Bloody Mary bar, whatever you need. Greyhounds, that's a nice summer, daytime drink. Trying to convince her to go. So
Where is the
or
tournament?
do I
Where's the
just
tournament?
say it's like 30 miles south from here,
Okay.
from Seattle. So do I just let her have her own day? Don't come. Don't worry about it. I mean, my son's not going to probably end up really caring. Or do I say, hey, you should come and support the son?
Has she, when you ask her, what do you want to do today? Has she ever unsolicited responded by saying, I want to sit in the sun with a bunch of other delusional adults watching 10 and 12-year-old kids try to throw strikes? That's my ideal day. If she hasn't said that,
not.
Puck, give her day. Let her have her moment in the sun, peace and quiet, home alone. Come on.
What if I buy her one of those new little chairs that you put on the bleachers so your back doesn't get thrown out? You think that would convince her to go to Bombs for Moms?
It's Mother's Day, okay? The organizers of the tournament, you should bring them on the show. Get them on here.
Yeah,
put them under the microscope.
Yeah. All right. What else do you got planned there at johncanzano.com? What else we got in the fire?
I got an email from a reader who was complaining that I am focusing too much on Oregon State and Washington State. So I'm about to venture outside of that. And, I reached out to Utah, Arizona State, some of the other schools that are going off to the Big 12. Think about this, Puck. They have every year when the Pac-12 schedule come out, and Arizona State's a great example. Every year when the schedule comes out, the Arizona State fans and administrators and coaches look at the schedule and they look at, are we playing Oregon? Are we playing USC? They are 5-15 against those two schools in the last 20 years. Okay, last 20 games. So those are losses for Arizona State. They are going into a conference in the Big 12 where they're looking around and they're seeing a peer group that looks more like them. They're not going to have to play, Oregon, USC, not even Washington. They've had some success against Washington. I think they're 3-3 in the last 6 against the Huskies. But they're looking around going, we can win these games. Now, Kenny Dillingham last year, he got a bowl ban. He got his starting quarterback got hurt early on. His backup got hurt. His third stringer got hurt. He was starting a tight end at quarterback for a little bit. His AD quit. He had maybe the most tumultuous 3-9 season that you've ever seen. I just think there's a little bit of sunshine at Arizona State right now, and maybe Colorado too, as they're looking around going, we don't have to deal with USC. We don't have to deal with Oregon.
Okay.
We can, Texas Tech, Baylor, we can play with these guys. So I'm looking at that right now. So that's on the horizon.
Cool. Go check it up at johncanzano.com. Follow him on social media, John Canzano BFT. Listen to his fabulous radio show down there in Portland, Oregon, 750. The Game, his weekly appearance here on pucksports.com, brought to you by Zeke's Pizza. Go visit zekespizza.com. Johnny, we'll talk to you next week, my friend.
Thank you.
There he is, the thumbs up on. I don't know if the video. How come they didn't do the thumbs up emoji
on if I could get one.
Video? All right, we'll talk to you soon. Another Wednesday edition, Daily Puck Drop at 10 a.m. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you tomorrow. As always, we promise to be better.
No shirt, no shoes, no ties.
Would anybody like to smoke some pot?
Yeah.
I was born to love you. I was born to lick your face. I was born to rub you, but you were born to rub me first.
What do you need my address for?
We'd like to send out a mailer.
Mother of mercy, I don't speak Japanese!